Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro, and we're going to answer the age-old question, is Avengers Endgame an Oscar contender? This is actually a very interesting question, one that in the beginning of the year I would have just been dismissive of, and I would have said, no, get away from me. But things have changed.
It's heading to $3 billion at the box office.
This movie has very good reviews, and it's not the first Avengers movie to get good reviews, but it's a phenomenon, folks. Phenomenon. We have to brag a little bit and say that we actually have like a little bit of credentials here, because when Black Panther came out, even before it came out, he said it's going to get nominated, and then it came out, and I wrote a post on Gold Derby, and I said Black Panther's getting nominated, and people said, "Hey fella, you're a crazy bitch," and I said, just wait and see. Just wait and see. They shared the article on their Facebook page, and then people were like, this kid doesn't know what he's talking about. And then here we are, bragging about Black Panther's 3 Oscar wins, and what was it, 7 or 8 nominations?
Black Panther makes sense in, like, the way that it's Ryan Coogler. It had important things going on. The Avengers is not an important movie.
Also, Black Panther was technically like pretty well put together. Say what you want about the visual effects, but it won 3 Oscars for some elements that were really well done.
Avengers, all you can say is visual effects. And let me just say, I did not anticipate having to make this video. I don't care about the Avengers, to be frank with you. I have not seen all the Avengers movies. I'm not particularly invested in superheroes, but they're like half of the box office today. These are giant. They're so hard to ignore. I mean, there's so many Marvel fans these days, and there's so much respect, like sheer respect for the MCU. People have, like, legitimate respect for this movie and for what the filmmakers are doing and the achievement. Like, this movie is a contender for Best Picture because the crowning achievement of the MCU is this movie. It is, in my opinion, one of the better MCU movies, if not one of the best or
Absolutely.
the best.
And why this movie might be a Best Picture contender is because this movie legitimately represents the entire MCU and is considered like the best movie in there. You know, critics might like Black Panther more, but I must make the distinction that people who like Black Panther, the people who nominated for Best Picture, not the same crowd that likes Endgame. The Marvel fanboys didn't want Black Panther to be nominated for Best Picture.
Wait.
The Academy doesn't care about the Avengers. The Marvel fanboys think that Infinity War was better than Black Panther. They're a different audience. So saying that Black Panther contended does not automatically make Endgame contending. Endgame has to make it on its own merits. And the merits are that it's maybe the best movie in the entire MCU. It's the conclusion that has people crying. A tearjerker is actually a key word here, because
Crowd-pleasing tearjerker. Boo hoo boo. I mean, how many moments in this movie were people like sobbing? And those moments were honestly very well done. As someone who didn't care, like didn't give a single shit about Infinity War.
No, we both didn't really even like Infinity War.
I found this movie to be very good. It's like, you gotta hand it to them. I think they knocked it out of the park. It wasn't really bloated in the way that I felt Infinity Wars was just like battle and action. I thought it was really stayed with the characters and made sure to complete their arcs. Every single character in this movie was, you know, they seem to be thinking about what their journey has been throughout the MCU and how can we conclude it in this way. And it's an achievement.
Also, just being an entertainment behemoth. It's 3 hours, and it's somehow like, and it doesn't even really feel like it. It breathes through it. A+ cinema score. We've seen how those movies do at the Oscars sometimes. American Sniper. Look at Bohemian Rhapsody, for example. Like that movie got in off of sheer entertainment, and I feel like the Endgame crowd is actually getting kind of that same reaction to Bohemian Rhapsody.
Not only did it make the money at the box office and do extremely well and please everybody and make everybody cry and get number 15 on the top 15 IMDb, should this also be at the Oscars? Because the GP, the general public, wants this movie. They want it. And how much of the GP has invaded the Oscars? That's what I don't know. That's what I want to know.
I mean,
we're going to figure that out.
Exactly.
We have Bohemian Rhapsody.
The Oscars have not given a single fuck about the Avengers in the past. Will they say, this movie's just fan service, entertainment, we don't need to nominate it? Or will they say, you know what? Actually, this movie makes its own case as being important for the world of entertainment and just being a generally good movie? Maybe we should just acknowledge this franchise by nominating this movie.
I think this is actually the right way to think about whether Best Picture is going to happen for a movie. What's the narrative behind it? What is the case that the movie's making? This movie has a giant case for why it should be nominated for Best Picture. It's not with like what ideas it brings or what it necessarily does that's new. It's just the crowning achievement of like the MCU, which is a cultural landmark.
Yeah, and I mean, the amount of people who love this movie is just so vast. It's hard not to believe that there aren't these people living among the Academy, okay? And
I think they've infiltrated.
Think about it.
I think they're in there.
If this movie, at the end of the year, just starts not showing up at, like, Critics' Choice, you know, the early ones, people are gonna be like, where's Endgame? They're gonna be like, where the fuck is Endgame? Give me him. Give me him. Give me him. So there's going to be so much demand for it. I have a hard time seeing this movie out of the conversation. We cannot dismiss it.
I think even some of the snobbier people recognize that in a different way, this movie should be nominated and should be recognized. I think that Bohemian Rhapsody getting nominated shows that these are not all snobs and they differ from the critics. There's a big base somewhere in the Academy that is going to appreciate this movie.
So what is this going to get? Like, you can bet it's going to get the PGA because they like to nominate superhero movies much more than the Academy. It probably would get AFI top 10, to be frank. Critics' Choice will, like, really... If it doesn't get Critics' Choice, like, that will be kind of weird, but, like, goodbye. But it'll...
No, I don't think that's goodbye.
I
don't think that's goodbye.
I feel like it will probably... Well, Bohemian Rhapsody didn't get Critics' Choice, but also critics like the movie a lot. Like, it has a 78
Honestly,
on Metacritic.
I think it could even get a Golden Globe nomination for drama.
There you go. That's another mystery.
I think it's harder to see it being shut out than it is seeing it at least pop up a little bit. And if it does pop up a little bit, people are going to be thinking about it and they're going to want it to happen. There's going to be like a cultural surge and it's just going to want this movie to get nominated.
We know that Disney has the money and the means to campaign this thing. They've
already screened it to Oscar voters. They already did it.
And what else can this movie get along its trail? It can get SAG Ensemble. I really believe that this will get SAG Ensemble because think about it. It has literally the biggest ensemble. So I feel like if it's nominated, it might even win. Because, like, how could you not? But can this movie get below the line categories? Can it get anything except for just visual effects and picture?
And that's a good question also that hurts its case to being nominated because this movie is not a real technical achievement beyond like visual effects. There's other categories that it's just not going to play in.
Could it get sound? People are going to say that it's going to start to get sound. Like, oh, Avengers could get sound. But no, because it didn't actually have standout sound. And the other movies haven't been nominated. I must say that there are people on the internet who are talking about the score. And like the score is it's maybe better than it was in Infinity War, but it's still like there are problems with the scores in a lot of Marvel movies, just like hitting the beats so obviously. I don't feel like it should get nominated for score, but there are some people who are like kind of hyping it up.
Could it get screenplay for being somewhat of an achievement and tying all these stories together? I'm pretty skeptical. Maybe.
I don't think so because Black Panther didn't.
Will they appreciate that?
Why would Black Panther not get it and then this does? Right. I don't think that it's going to get screenplay. I think you also might want to mention editing as a possibility because, you know, it is a 3-hour movie. It is tying a lot of story. It is juggling a lot of stories together. It actually does it fairly well. It's not stylized in any way that's interesting. It's just the fact that, you know, it maintained entertainment.
But Star Wars Force Awakens gets an editing nomination.
Yeah, that
was
a surprise. That was pretty weird.
Would they go for it? I mean, they sometimes do unpredictable things in editing. This one's hard to say for me. I really don't know.
There's this thing going around that Robert Downey Jr. is getting a little buzz for his performance. Buzz. You hear that?
Okay, so in the beginning of the movie, he's fantastic. Like, he's really good.
I was like, oh shit, like if he's like this the whole movie, like he could get a nomination.
And then the movie goes along and you kind of lose sight of that character, I think, and then he comes back in the end, he has a little moment.
And then he just kind of became Iron Man again, and it's like, well, now you're kind of doing the Iron Man thing, but you're not like revealing these layers that you were earlier in the movie, and they didn't bring that back enough to make me think that people will nominate him.
If Robert Downey Jr. gets nominated, Cole, people on Oscar night are gonna, oh, he's gonna, I hope he gets it, I hope he makes a speech, because people are actually gonna want him to win. If he gets nominated, they're going to expect him to win.
I don't think Robert Downey Jr. is getting nominated.
But if he does, people will be like, oh my god, he's going to win. I want him to win. Go Robert, go Robert.
I could even see a universe where SAG nominates Robert Downey Jr. and the Oscars don't.
Right. Here's a good example. Snape. never nominated for an Oscar for that movie, which people thought like the last one was the best, and they just didn't really care. I don't
Actually,
know
in
if the
general-
career achievement narrative is always that strong.
I think Harry Potter is actually a decent example of something like the Avengers, because Harry
Yeah.
Potter didn't get nominated, but it
Got an 87 on Metacritic.
it got a big critical response. It made a lot of money. It made a lot of people cry. And Harry Potter
And
didn't get nominated, but also the Avengers made like twice as much money. Does that matter? Like, is it more of a phenomenon? Like, yeah, it's more of a phenomenon. Like, Avengers is like kind of for everybody, and like Harry Potter's sort of like for younger audiences. So maybe that kind of hurt the movie. I think though that the buzz behind Avengers, like the amount of yelling about Endgame that's happening, is louder than the amount of yelling about Harry Potter.
Well,
that we
also
had.
Endgame's going to be number 1 or 2 at the box office, so there's
of all
that.
time.
There's that.
Well,
Why is it not getting nominated
hell
for director?
no.
Because MCU does not respect auteurs. It's not really the director's vision. It's tied into the producers. It's kind of like they're fulfilling the obligations that the MCU has to have in terms of style and everything.
But again, then
liberties.
you have Ryan Coogler, who actually kind of did that. He didn't.
No,
even
he
get
did- he
nominated.
did do that,
but
and
he
then he
didn't
didn't.
even get nominated.
Not
I
a
don't
good
think
case.
that it'd be easy to make the case that this
No.
would get screenplay, editing, or director, because not even Black Panther got those categories.
Yeah. Well, I think editing is different, though. My official prediction is that Avengers Endgame gets a Best Picture nomination, as much as I am kind of cringing at that. I didn't think this would happen. I didn't really want this to happen, but I think it's actually a pretty good movie, so I don't really care that much. And I think it gets picture and visual effects. I would not be willing to bet on any other categories at this point, although I'd say in order of likelihood, it would go supporting actor, editing, screenplay. The other ones I have too hard a time seeing, and then I guess the Sound Awards after that. That's not a lot of nominations.
It's hard to ignore that 8.8 on IMDb. It's really hard to ignore that. I mean, I can't imagine that when the awards start coming around, that people are just gonna not include it, and then if they do not include it, there's not gonna be like outrage. Like, I just don't see that happening.
So, the silly little Avengers Kids Lunchbox Happy Meal movie may actually get a Best Picture nomination. You gotta call the movie that no one else sees, but could surge up in the end of the year. This movie always exists. Every year there's one. It was Black Panther. It was Get Out. It was
Mad
Max. And it was Hell or High Water. And then it was Grand Budapest Hotel. Every year there's one movie that people don't really know because maybe it's early in the year. And people remember it, and then boom. And I think
It gets
that
a lot of
this
nominations.
is the movie this year. There's no other case for another movie this year.
What else do these movies have in common is that they're usually unconventional contenders.
Well,
Get Out
yeah.
can't get nominated because it's a genre movie. Mad Max, a genre movie. Hell or High Waters, a genre movie. If they do well enough with the critics, and they get a lot of buzz, and people don't forget about them by the end of the year, there they are.
And they do well at the box office. That's also important. If you want to be on top of that, this might be the movie that you want to be calling out there.
Do you think that we're complete fools and we're just going to eat our own words for the rest of the year?
Do you
do you
think-
agree that Avengers Endgame is a serious shot?
Do you think it's weird that an Avengers movie is getting nominated for Best Picture? Because I do.